Oh, okay, should be working. Alan, can you hear?
Okay. So we're going to all be sight reading. We're all going to be making mistakes, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So don't worry about it. You will find out, or some of you already know, who the strongest readers within your sections are. So you can lean your ear toward them as we go. But don't worry about making mistakes. We are starting the season with a program of music, mainly or all from the Romantic era, featuring works for chorus and for piano. And I'll talk a little bit about them as we get into them. And before we go any further, for those of you who don't know, our wonderful accompanist, Isaku Iratsuka. The first set of pieces we're going to look at, and we're going to go right in order in the packet that you have, is by Johannes Brahms. And Brahms is one of the big, the three Bs in classical music: Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms. Though Brahms has not always enjoyed complete support from the musical community. For those of you who have been to Symphony Hall, you'll notice that around the top of the ceiling are a bunch of oval plaques, and directly over center stage, it reads Beethoven. These were originally intended to have the names of the great composers all the way around the hall. The only person that the entire Boston Symphony Planning Board could agree on was Beethoven. And in fact, when someone suggested Brahms, one of the members of the board said the only sign we should have with his name would be "exit in case of Brahms." So, don't know why, but he was not always beloved. He was, back when Symphony Hall was first made, or is that it? I'm not even sure. So, Brahms was the son of a horn player and a double bassist, and he first gained notoriety as a pianist. His compositional work was first really championed by the Schumanns, Robert and Clara, and they brought him and introduced him to all of the main composers, conductors, impresarios of the time, and really helped to get his career going. The first set of pieces are the Zigeunerlieder, and translated the Gypsy songs. And these, there were two sets of these. One choral, and then later he added some solo pieces to it. We're doing the original choral version. The texts are from Hungarian folk songs that were translated into German by one of his friends in Vienna. And we're just going to read and see what happens with them. So this starts with number 1. And for tonight, the first 3 big pieces we're going to do, the first 3 Brahms things, the Zigeunerlieder, the Neue Liebeslieder, and the Liebeslieder, are all in German. So for simplicity's sake, we're just going to do them on Da. just to get going, and we will not be doing them at the tempo that they will necessarily finally be done, because some of them bounce along pretty quickly. But so here we go, and tenors. We'll stay the same tempo. And he took inspiration from some of the original melodies that he heard and part of it shows itself in things like the phrase length. For instance, the opening tenor line, which is then repeated by the sopranos, da 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 da, seems to be 2 bars short. It's a 6-bar phrase instead of a 4-bar or an 8-bar phrase, which is what gives it some of the interest. And he does things like that throughout the piece. And you can see in this, tenors start us out, then sopranos take over the same exact melody with everyone else harmonizing underneath it. And then the same thing happens in the second section. And then when we get to, on page number 4, the second system, suddenly it starts going faster and faster and faster. So it bounces along very quickly. On to number 2. Oh, yes.
Sorry, did you say that the 6-bar phrase was from Guardian Example?
Yes, that he was sort of emulating the styles that he had heard when he had been in Budapest, I believe it was. Yeah.
I'm not really sure. Are the tenors singing the notes in rhythm, or are we have to do it?
So up there. Number 2. We all start out in unison, and again, we'll go fairly slowly. Da, 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 da. 1 and 2 and da, 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 And here, we even get a little stranger in that the phrase is 7 measures. So, number 3 starts again with tenors. And da 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 Sorry, I came in a little bit early there. Right where everyone comes in, and yeah, let's just do the parts. 1 and 2 and. Then that repeats and repeating. Here we go, back to the 3rd line. And sopranos, where you come in at the next entrance, you've got the same melody that the tenors had. And da 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 And number 4, this time sopranos get to start. And again, a lot of these go at a faster clip eventually. Number 4. Da, da. Is that the... Da. 1, 2, here we go. And then we go back to the very beginning, and we have a second set of words. So sopranos, back, repeat, and da. And number 5, we'll go right where the voices come in. Quickly around this tempo. Again, eventually bounces faster. And da. And then we go back to again, and it repeats. With the second time, when we get to that last little bit, we'll probably speed it up so it goes faster and faster and faster. But jumping to number 6. Ready, tenors, and da. Da, 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 Then we go back to the beginning, or back to the top of that page, and we repeat in the way this one happens, we repeat that. Then we go back to the very beginning and do the second set of words. So when we repeat on page 15, we're repeating the first set of words until the second time when we repeat the second set of words. So, going to number 7, and tenors again, and the first time that we've encountered a tempo that isn't either allegro or faster. This is the first one that slows down a little bit. 3, 1, 2. One and then there's another line stuck in there. And this is the one that doesn't have any repeats in it. Number 8. Again, starting out with tenors. 1, 2, 1 and 2. Then we go back to the beginning for the second set of words. Yeah. Oh. Did we do dotted rhythms? Oh, okay. Sorry if we if we were leading you astray. Number 9, and we're back to faster tempo again, but about here for now. And da, 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 da. And going on and then we're back for the second time through. You can hear with these pieces that you can start to feel where he's going with things. Nothing is terribly, terribly difficult. It's just a lot of notes. And what will happen is I will get out to you this week, either tonight or early tomorrow morning, a list of what we are going to rehearse next week, as well as some other notes. I will also include with that links to recordings of all of the pieces. And by Friday, whatever it is that we're going to be rehearsing next Monday, there will be rehearsal tracks on the Choral Society website. So you'll be able to go and look at and listen to the pieces both in individual parts and with all four parts going at the same time. And I also hope to have up the week after that recordings of all of the text by piece so that you can listen to the individual piece before you go to sing it and make marks in your music as to what's the easiest way for you to write down the pronunciation. If people are interested in what are called International Phonetic Alphabet breakdowns of the pieces, IPA, I can also provide those. So I will include all of that information in the notes that I send out. Number 10. Again, a little bit slower. 1 and 2 and soprano, alto. And tenor, bass, where are we? And soprano, alto. And tenor, bass. Right from soprano alto at the bottom of page 24, the third measure, and And in one of those sort of strange compositional things, tenors hang on to the note beyond everyone else, which isn't unusual for tenor sections, but this time it's actually written that way, so. And number 11. And tenor, here we go. And the key change. And back to the original. Ready, starting with all four again. 1, and here we go. And starting that way again. And and da 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 and everyone and that's how it ends with this one. If you noticed, all 11 pieces are in 2/4 time. The next two sets of pieces that we're going to take a look at are all in 3/4 time because they're all waltzes. The Liebeslieder and the Neue Liebeslieder Walzer, they were originally composed by Brahms the same way the Zigeunerlieder were, not for public performance. They were composed to be performed in someone's living room for small little gatherings. But they turned out to be so successful that they found their way to the concert stage pretty quickly. And now that's almost all where you hear them. Much in the same way that Schubert wrote a lot of his smaller scale works with the expectation that they would be performed by friends, in their little salons. The Neue Liebeslieder, most of the texts of these are also adapted from folk songs, except for the final one, Zum Schluss, which is a poem by Goethe. But all of the others came from Turkey, Poland, Latvia, Sicily, and were translated into German. These are a group of pieces that are for chorus and piano for hand, so 2 players. And we will, for now, we'll probably just do what we did with just the voice parts. But we will also be joined for the concert by Isaac O's daughter, who will be playing along with us on these 2 Brahms pieces, the Liebeslieder and the Neue Liebeslieder, a piece that is in here by Edward MacDowell, who was a British composer, or no, excuse me, an American composer. And then we're doing 3 pieces from a set by Edward Elgar. And they were originally written for piano and chorus. Elgar had the reputation of getting the most bang for his buck. So he arranged them for orchestra. And then he arranged them for chorus and orchestra. So I've taken the orchestra score, which added all sorts of neat things to the piano part that you can't do with just 2 hands. And I've created 4-hand versions of those as well to get the extra orchestral stuff going in there. So we will be lucky enough to have 2 pianists on 1 piano for 4 of these groups of selections. And now we will do some of the Neue Liebeslieder. These were intended not just for ensemble, but there were lots of solo parts put in the midst of it. And we're just doing the choral versions, or the choral sections. So it starts with number 1. Yes? So let's see. And eventually this one goes pretty quickly as well. So, right where we come in. 1 and 2. Repeats. And number 2, basses finally get a solo line. Here we go. And soprano alto. And then we skip numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, and go to number 7. Eventually, again, this one bounces along. Bum, 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 dee, da, 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 bum, bum. But for now, bum, 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 1 and here we go. next one might be the most well-known from the cycle. Very beautiful, soft, gentle piece. One and down. Last bit repeats. Yes. Yes. It's more to remind us, the question was about the staccato marks over the half notes that are tied to the next half note. So it's more a little pressure thing and reminding you that you end it and don't carry all the way through. Ah, 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 ah. Yes. Which one is it? Um, Let me check. It should be the G, then the E natural, then a C. Oh. Oh, got you. Thank you. Measure 38, soprano's first note of the measure tied over should be a G. It follows the pattern up. Thank you. If you find mistakes in the music, please let me know. You don't have to deal with my typos this time, which are much more frequent than mistakes you'll find in these, but not all of these scores are perfect. The piano parts that we're working off of are actually different than the ones you have because there were parts in the piano that I found mistakes. So that it is possible that they are, because these are additions that people have put together. Number 12. 1, 2, 3, here we go. One and two and and number 13, sopranos and altos. 1 and down. And repeat. This little gentle sort of lullaby. And then number 14, penultimate piece of the set. 1, 2, 3, soprano, alto. And Then tenor bass, you get join. And 1. And then the final piece of the set. Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. So it's the same as the sopranos. Oh, yeah. If you couldn't hear the question, it was about measure 82. The altos and tenors and basses are missing the final syllable. And it's the same as the sopranos, the BE. HE, sorry. It's very tiny print. And the final one. And it's in 9/4, but it's really 3/3. 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 1. Ready, sopranos entrance, and And that's actually probably even a little bit faster than the piece will go. It'll probably go a little bit softer than that. The next two pieces in your folder come from the first collection of the Liebeslieder Walzer, as opposed to the second one, which we just did, which is the Neue, the new Liebeslieder. They were so popular, he decided to cash in on that and make a second set. And personally, for my money, the second set is better. I find them more enjoyable, in part because there's more all group singing. In the first set, it was mainly solos with a couple of ensemble pieces thrown in. So there apparently is some speculation that this set, the original set, were written as sort of a tribute to the songs of Schubert, that he was thinking of Schubert when he was composing them. And again, they were so well received, he actually made orchestrations of the piano accompaniments to get different styles of performance. You almost never hear those anymore. I don't think I have ever heard a live performance of them, and maybe heard some of them on recording once or twice, but no one does the orchestral versions. I think because they have a sweeter, more direct feel when it's just the piano, especially since he originally intended them as chamber works, things to be sung in somebody's living room, basically. So we're going to skip these two for right now because I want to get to a couple of the other things. If you look past them in your score, the next thing you come up to are pieces by Edward Elgar, British composer who lived from 1857 to 1934, but whose music was decidedly sort of romantic and in many ways a throwback, rather than looking forward to the new type of music that was coming in the 20th century. When Elgar became popular, it was the time of what is sometimes called the Second English Renaissance. If we think about serious, quote unquote, concert style composers, after Henry Purcell, who died in 1695, there's nobody until we get to the late 19th, early 20th century. The one person who sort of is almost in that category is someone who will be doing at the very end of the pieces, Arthur Sullivan. And had he gone in a more classical direction, rather than sort of with lighter stuff, who knows? Vaughan Williams wrote of Sullivan that he said, we often talk about the right person for the right time. He talked of Sullivan as the right person for the wrong time. That had he been born just a little bit earlier, he would have been the English Mendelssohn. Did we need another Mendelssohn? Who knows? Because he left us those wonderful operettas, as well as some other things. But Elgar was with that group that just sort of exploded. Herbert Howells, Vaughan Williams, Benjamin Britten. Suddenly there was this wealth of music coming out of the British Isles. For the first time in nearly 300, well, over 300 years. They still had an incredibly active musical life, but they didn't produce a lot of purely classical style composers. These pieces were written or were inspired when Elgar was vacationing in Bavaria, and he heard a lot of folk singing and saw a lot of folk dancing. There was not much in the way of entertainment where he was, with the exception of these folk things, and he really grew to love them. His wife roughly translated into English what she heard, though there is some speculation that she just took the sounds that she heard and made up words that sounded like them, that would fit in these pieces. And we're doing 3 of them. There were 6 of them. And as I said earlier, he originally did them for just piano and voices, and then basically to get as much use out of them, added instruments so that they would have better chance of being performed. So we're going to go through this fairly slowly, and you get a lot of help from the accompaniment. So we'll do it with the accompaniment then. About this tempo. 1, 2, 3, 1, and down. Second ending. Come to the dancing eyes are glancing. Hark, what joyous to go hasten to the dancing eyes are glaring, dancing. Hark, what sounds. Hark, hark. Down the path the lights are gleaming, and they gladly beaming. Welcome, welcome, blast with song. Down the path the lights are gleaming, freshly, freshly gleaming, beaming. Welcome, welcome us with song. Lights are gleaming to the ground. The faces beam. Welcome, welcome all. We did come dance. Hark, what joyous sounds. second ending of the tea. Dancing and the heart grow lighter, heart grow lighter as we dance on. Dancing makes the heart grow lighter, heart grow lighter as we dance along. Come dance, come dance, come dance, come dance, dance. And the very ending gets faster and faster and faster. And let's see. The next one is a sweet little lullaby. The third one is a rollicking little bit. And we're back in waltz time again, you may have noticed. The next set of pieces after that is by the American composer Edward McDowell, who was part of what were known as the Boston Six, which was a compositional school, the second Boston compositional school. The first Boston compositional school, or the first New England school, was also known as the Yankee Tunesmiths, and the only one whose music has really survived is William Billings. The second school of American composers, the Boston Six, included Amy Beach, whose work we did a little while ago, George Chadwick, Arthur Foote, John Knowles Payne, Horatio Parker, and Edward McDowell. And for those of you who are familiar with the McDowell colony up in Peterborough, New Hampshire, which is an artist's colony, it's named in honor of Edward McDowell. So his influence is still around. And this, as you can see from your music, is again, piano four hands, and we split into lots of parts in the voices. Go up to as many as 8. And we're going to skip and do the last 2 pieces in your folder, which are by that other composer I mentioned, good old Arthur Sullivan, Sir Arthur Sullivan. For those of you who know the work that he did with William S. Gilbert, Arthur Sullivan was granted a knighthood because he wrote the music. William Gilbert wrote the lyrics that quite often poked fun at the royalty. They very clearly and pointedly made sure not to give him a knighthood. He never received any title whatsoever, even though without his lyrics, Sullivan's pieces wouldn't have had the same effect. He wrote, before all of this, the light operas began, he wrote a number of what they called part songs, which were intended for a cappella use. And this is from a set of about 20 that he did, 2 of them, Fair Daffodils and then The Rainy Day. So we will just read through these 2. And bum ba do re 1 2 soprano. We speak to thee, we weep to you, hastening day, the summer leading song. Stay, stay until the evening song, and hear our brother, we will go with you all up, and having made the we'll go with you all. And the second one, the rainy day. One, two, three, four. The day is cold and dark and dreary. It rains and the wind is never weary. The vines still cling to the moldering wall, and at every gust the dread peaceful. At every gust the dead will fall, and the day is dark and dreary. One and two and my life is cold and dark and dreary. It rains and the wind is never weary. My thoughts shall cling to the moldering grain of you, and the hopes of youth are deep in the blood. The hopes of youth fall in the floods. And one and two and be still, heart and live again. The clouds in the planted, the fate is not caught, fate is not caught, into life such rain must fall, into each life of rain must fall. Summer dark and dreary. All right. Oops. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of what we will be working on this fall. Some of it is a little tricky, but nothing is terribly difficult. Certainly not as difficult as some of the things we have done before. How many people here, I know some people have sung both the Liebeslieder and Neue Liebeslieder. Just show of hands to a few people. We've done some of the Neue Liebeslieder here. Anyone sung the Zigeunerlieder before? All right. How about, anyone ever seen the Elgar?
Yes.
Oh, oh, fun. Neat. Anyone ever sung anything by Edward McDowell? I'm not sure if we did. I'll have to check my records. But we are going to have some announcements now. As I say, I will be getting things out. I will try tonight to write up some notes from tonight. There won't be a whole lot to say, but also to give you the links and things to recordings of these. And that sheet, I believe, is already posted on our website. And to get to it, you go into the members section, and what's the password?
Sing.
Sing.
An exclamation point and capital S.
Capital S, lowercase ing, exclamation point. And I will scoot out of the way. I'm going to leave these here.
So welcome back to everyone, and welcome to the new members. I have a couple announcements, but I want Corey to go first, and then, and then I'll finish up. Because you're going to introduce our new members, I hope. Or new, not individually, because I don't want to embarrass them.
We had 7 people come and join us. And one person who started last year who couldn't end up coming and came back, so that's 8. I have to say, I have never seen this area so full. And the sound was wonderful. So you have to stay, because then I'll cry, and it's terrible when I go. So,
They have the good chairs. The pews are not up.
just a reminder to the new folks who have the white binders, if you'll just put them back at the table that you got them, and as soon as you've made your decision, like next week maybe you could make your decision. No. We'd love to have you come back, obviously. You bring a black binder, put all your music in there, return the empty white binder to me for more new people, and you'll get an official name tag. Dues will be paid. Speaking of dues, we have maintained our same $150 for several years. We were lucky enough to be able to do it again. There are a couple of ways to pay. Mighty Cause, which is on our website. There's a link to it. I will send that out to the new folks. There is a $10 and some odd cents fee if you're going to do that. If you would please elect to pay it, because otherwise it comes out of us. So we're just doing it for the convenience factor. For those of you who want to avoid the $10 and some odd cents, bring me a check next week. Thank you to those people who have already paid. One moment. As you could see, there are lots of different pieces. There are 26 sections. If you don't put tabs in, when Ted skips around to different things, although he does send a list of what we're going over next week. But for some people, they take what's going to be rehearsed next week and they move it to the front. A lot of us don't. You have to be able to find it, otherwise there'll be ruffling of papers, asking your neighbor, what does that one look like? What's it called? What's it next to? Please take time. Jatora brought some sticky notes. If you don't have any tabs, I use these little post-it note things and then figure out like a one-word thing that'll tell me what it says. For the Zigeunerlieder, I put Z1, Z2, Z3. Keep it simple. You've got to do it, otherwise you get lost.
And I have more post-it notes if anybody needs them.
Now, Ted said he will be sending out notes. He will. He will be sending them to me. So when you get an email, it will not be from Ted Whalen. It will not be from Wellesley Choral Society. It will be from me, and it's my full real name. Don't ask me why I did that. But it will say Corrine Whalen 007. So please check your spam if it doesn't come through in the next couple of days. So all of that stuff will be sent out by me. And the only other thing I have is for this section, if you wouldn't mind putting the chairs back. I bring them down, but it's harder for me to put them back. And it's 2 full rows of chairs. So these go up, and one's in the back, up that way, and that's it. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're gonna talk about
Yep.
that.
So a couple of things. First of all, next week, unfortunately, I didn't find this out until yesterday, but there is a meet and greet, the state rep, happening in the parish hall next Monday night at 7. So parking for us, depending upon how well attended that is, may be an issue. There is street parking, obviously, out on Washington Street. There's also some street parking on the side streets across the way. And I think you could probably even get away with parking in the bank lot if you need to, because the bank won't be open. But if you can carpool, that would probably be your best bet. We don't know how many people there'll be for that, but it starts at 7, so the parking lot will be filling up earlier than usual. I apologize for the lights not being on tonight. That is not the church's fault. That is the weather. It got darker earlier than it should have. They've promised me the lights will be on until 10, so we should be fine as we leave. Please let me know if you have a problem with the lights or you notice the light is out. We have a time to socialize tonight, and it's wonderful because we're no longer behind our masks, most of us. We have some cookies, some beverages, some chocolate. I'm hoping it's still not stuck to the wrappers from July Jubilation. Out in the lobby, please stick around and say hello, greet the new members. If you have your name tag and you haven't put it on, hello, I forgot mine, it's in my bag, I'll put it on. Wear your name tag so we know who you are. Otherwise, welcome back, welcome to a new season of singing, and I will see you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't get these to you ahead of time. I meant to, it just was. Here you go, sir. Thank you very much. Oh,
I can hear you fine, Bill.
oh, good.
Which is good.
Let's see, what
We have a new pastor at the Hills Church.
did I?
I can hardly hear him, but he's very good organist.
Oh. And how is it working out with the new organist?
Just fine. John Finney, of course, went to Florida, but he checks back with us occasionally. He misses us, I think, a little.
I would imagine after
And
so
also
long.
basic.
Yes. I still can't believe they wound up down in Florida.
Well, we missed the storm this time. Let's hope they miss a few more.
It's yeah. Good evening, sir.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Happy fall.
Yes.
Doesn't feel like fall.
I just wanted to thank you for doing the 9 Galip.
Oh, absolutely.
That modulation at the, between the repeat